Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on Monday, December 8th. LA Galaxy getting ready for a busy week. We have free agency coming up on Wednesday. We have re-entry drafts headed our way. We have Concacaf Champions Cup draw. And, of course, we just got through the ever cringeworthy World Cup draw. So we know the games in Los Angeles and how that will sort of play out here for the World Cup. A lot of stuff to talk about. Galaxy dipping their toes, possibly going after some free agents, some internationals. We'll give you a little updates about that as well. So a lot of stuff to get to, a lot of things to talk about. To help me do all that, we're glad to have him back here, back from Washington, D.C. It is Mr. Kevin, the Panda, Baxter. If he could ever unmute his microphone. You press the button once. We still can't hear you. We'll keep trying. Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you. There we go. Oh, good. So now it just froze. All right, wonderful. Well, we're off to a great start. That's always a good news. LA Galaxy getting ready for a wonderfully exciting week, I think, for everybody. Certainly the Concacaf Champions Cup and all that's coming. We really need to teach Kevin that whenever he hangs up, he dumps all of the work that I do beforehand. So now I have to redo. Your microphone. It wasn't the connection. It was your microphone. Okay, so nobody can hear you. So now I have to go in and I have to bring you in. So give me a second while we do all that. And I have to try to talk to people while I do it. Let's do our best here and see if we can get some help in all of this stuff. All right, so that is going to go there. I will do my best to bring you into this one right now. So I'm glad we have 15 minutes beforehand to do all this stuff. It's very much worth it. So, although apparently we're not even going to get you in on those ones. That doesn't seem to be something that's happening either. No, I don't know what you did, but you kicked yourself completely out of the show. So, looks like we might be dead in the water there, bud. Because we can't hear you, we can't see you, so it's going to. Why don't you go ahead and try to call back again? We'll see if for some magical reason it goes. Literally, I want to tell everybody. We start this show at 7:45, like Kevin and I do, right? So we start this. We're like, oh, okay, no problems. We're gonna be able to get it all done. We have everything working perfectly, and then we start the show, and Kevin disappears. So we'll do our best to see if I can somehow find a way to get you back in. But I think at this point, just staring at your wonderful face here is going to be about as good as we get. And I don't know that I can get your audio back in. So other than that, though, everything is going just wonderful. Yep. Try it one more time and see if for some reason... Nope, not going to work. So why don't you go ahead and call back on the phone? So we'll do that. We'll eventually figure all this stuff out. So... really excited about all that. Had a great show, and we'll still have you in a great show here. Lots of stuff for the LA Galaxy to talk about in terms of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to do it. It's just a matter of being patient at this point. And certainly you look at the things that are coming up like Concacaf Champions Cup. or any of those. And this is going to be really what sort of defines the beginning of the season for the LA Galaxy. We're going to be dialed in on CONCACAF Champions Cup. That draw happens tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific Coast time. There is a YouTube link for that. So you're going to want to definitely pay attention to that as we go into tomorrow. And the big thing I think that everybody is sort of waiting for and looking for here is what the schedule is going to be, because it's about whether or not the Galaxy will be at Coachella Valley Invitational. And while it's not something that I think will define the LA Galaxy for next season in terms of if they go to CVI or they don't go to CVI, it's going to be a big difference. But what I do think is that if the Galaxy can still be part of Coachella Valley Invitational, it makes Coachella Valley Invitational look better as well, as we know. That's usually how it goes. All right, Kevin, we get you back on the phone there?
I think so, but I'm still trying to get back in the computer. You know, this Microsoft Teams thing, it's just not us.
Yeah.
I use Microsoft Teams at work, and it's the worst.
Yeah, it's bad, but again, it was working. So,
It was.
Yep, was just fine, perfectly stable. Had you on everything, and then it just disappeared. So, but no, so that's where I'm sort of looking at for CBI. Now, Kevin, you were lucky enough to be in Washington, D.C. Lucky was in quotation marks because I saw the snow flurries, and when there's snow flurries in Washington, D.C., that stadium loves, and I mean loves to shut itself down, or that city loves to shut itself down. How was that?
It was horrible. It was maybe not as bad as it seemed on TV. And the reason I say that is because we could look away and go to the restroom or whatever. And you guys, if you were watching it, you had to keep watching the TV. The whole thing was cringeworthy. It was at the Kennedy Center. The unwashed masses from the media were not allowed actually in the actual Kennedy Center. It's not as big as it looks on TV. So space was limited to all the coaches and federations and stuff. We were in a little, not a little, we were in an auditorium next door where we watched the same TV feed that you guys had. Yeah, it was pretty bad. And then afterwards, we got to go speak to coaches and stuff to find out what they felt about the draw and what they thought of the World Cup and preparing for the World Cup and stuff. But the draw itself was horrible. You're right, it was snowing, and you mentioned about Washington shutting down when it snows. It wasn't so much that it shut down, but the security, because the president was coming to the event, it was way over the top. We had to stand in a line for a couple of hours to go through the magnometers. The press room opened at like 7 or 8, and the ceremony started, I think, at 11:30. They wanted us there at like 7:30 in the morning to get through the security. We had to stand in the snow to do that. It was pretty bad. World Cup not off to a good start.
No, and I mean, I I told you this before we started. It seemed like somebody who wasn't American tried to write like an interesting award show using like American tropes, and I point to the Village People at the end being one of those things. It would be like if I tried to write an award show in France, and I'd be like, well, we definitely need a croissant, and we need, a baguette, and we need the Eiffel Tower, and, we need, like, I can go to the tropes, and it sort of felt like everything was the tropes. I don't know that anybody wanted to have 2 hours of talk and everything before you even get to a draw. I don't know that we needed to have Rio Ferdinand providing the comedy sketches that he did. By the way, I thought he did a great job whenever they were actually pulling the pots and doing all that. I thought he was great on that. That's what he should have been doing.
But did you see his facial expression during the comedy things? He knew it was bad, and you could tell he didn't want to be doing that. He knew it was terrible, but he kind of soldiered on. I guess they were paying him or something, but he kind of soldiered on. The Village People, though, I think you're kind of missing. By the way, I'm trying to get in again. The Village People, that was for Trump. That was another part of Infantino Infantino. It was very interesting, the peace medal that was given out the day Infantino invented that 5 weeks ago. The rest of the FIFA board said they didn't know anything about it. They said there were no other candidates. It was a sop to Trump. And the Village People were as well. Trump, for whatever reason, likes YMCA, likes the Village People, came out and did his little dance with them at the end. The Village People weren't so much a trope of American culture as it was another sop to Trump to keep him happy. I did write, I don't know if you saw it, I did write a page-one story in the Sunday paper about Trump and the medal and what Infantino is trying to accomplish. And we asked people for, a reaction, because to me, it seems like FIFA's really embarrassing himself, bending over, giving Trump this peace prize they made up, the village people, all that. And their response was, look, every time we go to another country for a big event, we try to work very closely with the leaders of those countries, and we try to have good relationships, and we spend a lot of time with them. And well, that's great, but this World Cup is in 3 countries. I don't think Infantino met Mark Carney until this weekend, and I don't know if he's met Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico. So it does seem like one guy is getting a lot of attention, and the rest of the World Cup host countries are not.
Can you imagine creating a scenario in which someone wants to suck up to you that hard, like go over the top like that? That's what I sort of like. FIFA is in my opinion only, a totally corrupt organization from really, I would say top to bottom, but there's probably some great people who do grassroots things with FIFA. I'm sure there's good parts of it, but when you get to the World Cup, we know it's about money. We know it's about the sensationalism of soccer and the sport, and we can try to say that, hey, bringing in all these countries is what they want to do for the better of the game, but we know that's really a money draw. Like, we just got told that FIFA is going to mandate that there are hydration breaks in every game, so there's going to be a 3-minute hydration break in each half. And Kevin, what do you think they'll do during those 3 minutes of hydration breaks that have now been planned?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. If you can get me, I'm trying to log in again.
Now, I closed it. I'm not messing with it while we do a show.
That's too bad. You're gonna miss seeing my FIFA peace medal.
Yeah.
What it essentially does is each game now has been divided into quarters. We no longer have 2 halves. We have 4 quarters like American football. Those hydration breaks, I've already said, those will be commercial breaks.
Right.
Then go away, and so now they have 6 minutes of additional commercials for every game. And it's going to stop the flow of the game. The interesting thing is that is for every game. So indoor games are going to stop at 22 minutes as well. Games played in indoor stadiums. SoFi is not technically an indoor stadium. It has a roof, but it's not climate controlled. 4 of the 16 facilities they'll be using are climate controlled. Those are all 4 in the U.S. They will stop every game for a hydration break. And there was a report that came out of England just before the World Cup draw that talked about, they said 10 of the 16 stadiums are at danger for heat and humidity, the kind of heat and humidity we saw last year at the Club World Cup. And the final is scheduled to start 3 o'clock local time in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The average heat index for that time of the day at that time of the year in East Rutherford, New Jersey is 89 degrees. So that's going to be a tough final for whoever makes it.
Yeah. By the way, El Chewy says $5 super chat. Hey Josh, I don't miss a podcast. He goes, I'm sure Baxter had the time of his life seeing the future Nobel Peace winner for peace in person, right? So yeah, just missed out on one award, but got another one just by the skin of his teeth. So again, the pandering and all that is really interesting. No, the commercialism, again, it is not surprising. I would say that the draw was campy and cringeworthy. Tom Bogert said it best. I feel like I need to apologize. He was on BBC and he said, I feel like I need to apologize to the rest of the world for what we saw. And I just can't believe that somebody from this country with an understanding of the North American grasp of this, with Canada and Mexico in there as well, would put that together. It just seems like it lost a lot of it. It's like, oh, well, who's more American than Kevin Hart? And I get that, it's great, but Kevin Hart is an entertainer that seemed like maybe he saw the script that morning. It feels like there wasn't a lot of run-throughs on this.
And there were better hosts. I mean, I'm not quite sure what Kevin Hart's relationship to soccer is. Maybe there is one. But Jason Sudeikis, Ted Lasso would have been perfect. Have him come out as Ted Lasso. I think that would have been great. That
would have at least been American aware, right? The rest of the world, in a lot of places, hate Ted Lasso. They think it's a stupid show, and Americans tend to generally like it, mostly because it's not a show, I believe, about soccer. It's a show about life and the challenges in it. But the rest of the world doesn't like it. In England, they don't like. So if you did Ted Lasso, at least you would be certainly playing to the American audience, right? That type of thing. But
and the thing about the pandering on Infantino's part, his first World Cup was 2018, and he pandered to the Russians so hard that when the games were over, they gave him the Friendship Medal, which is the highest honor the Russians give to a non-Russian citizen. So they thought he was pretty great. Then before Qatar, he actually moved to Qatar for a year and a half, enrolled his children in local schools. Obviously, the message was everything here is just great. There's nothing to worry about. My kids are going to school here. Everything's wonderful. I got a house here. So he lived there for a year and a half. And then on the eve of the World Cup, when the Qataris came out and said, look, we know we have this agreement with Budweiser, one of your major sponsors, to sell alcohol at the stadiums. We negotiated that over many years, and I covered this issue, so I know this to be true. We negotiated this agreement over many years, but now on the eve of the World Cup, we're going to say if there's beer at the stadiums, no game.
Yeah.
And the Qataris threatened to shut it down. Did Infantino argue with him? No, he folded in a heartbeat. And the same thing over an agreement that FIFA and UEFA had with the team captains. They were going to wear rainbow armbands, and LGBTQ rights are not accepted or not recognized in Qatar. The Qataris said no armbands, and so Infantino shut that down immediately too. So he kind of has this history of pandering. Although I think maybe this might have been the worst.
Maybe. We'll see. There's still a whole tournament to go, so I can't imagine the pandering that will end up doing it. Here is at least the good news for all of our friends here in Los Angeles. The list of games for Los Angeles is now available to you, so you can get that. The USA-Paraguay game is going to be, I think, one of the bigger ones. And so that's going to be really interesting. You get 2 U.S. games in Los Angeles. Then there's a round of 32 games that are in there as well. There's a quarterfinal game that will be played there. But overall, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total games in Los Angeles? That's not bad for Los Angeles natives here.
Well, and what you don't see, so you see the 2 U.S. games and the 2 games with Iran. One of the things that FIFA did is they had, after they did the draw, they announced the times, the start times, and the teams the next day. Now, we knew a lot of them. We knew the U.S. was coming here for 2 games. We knew that, and when they drew the teams, we knew who they would play. But many of the other games, there were like 2 sites. Like, would say this could be at SoFi, or it could be at Santa Clara, it could be Seattle, or it could be Kansas City. And then on Saturday, they told us the start times and the teams. So what FIFA did is they worked overnight to decide which markets would be best for which teams. They were cognizant of travel and time zones and things like that. They wanted teams going, east to west, so that they would have extra time as opposed to going west to east as much as possible, kind of things like that, and times between games, to recover, training facilities. But they also looked at, I think, the local markets, and I believe that's why SoFi got Iran twice. Southern California is home to the largest Iranian community outside Iran, and with Iran on the list of countries banned from applying for visas, according to President Trump's presidential decree, that means they won't be able to come from Iran to come cheer their team. The same with the Haitians. So they put Iran here, hoping that I think they would sell tickets to the local Iranian community. One thing I don't know if on that graphic you have the times, but 5 of the 8 games will start at noon local time, and 3 of those 5 games will be weekday games. So you're going to have World Cup games starting at noon on a weekday, right by LAX off the 405. So welcome to Carmageddon.
Yeah, it's gonna. I always say that, and for the most part, like, when was the last time we had something that was really big here in Los Angeles in the area, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's going to be horrible." Like maybe it was the Super Bowl or something like that, and everybody said it was horrible, and then everybody just avoided the area, and it was fine, right? Like nobody wanted to go anywhere near it, and it was perfectly fine. So,
one of the things that the MTA Metro Transportation Administration did this year is it was last year when they had the 6 Taylor was it 8 Taylor Swift concerts, 6 Taylor Swift concerts. They actually did a dry run on trying to get people in and out of SoFi, and they learned a lot. They said between the first concert and the last concert, the way they had streamlined everything, adding extra trains, they're going to add, I think, 130 buses to the fleet for the World Cup, trying to get people, most of the Europeans and people from other countries coming in, not just Europe, but they're used to using public transportation. The idea of renting a car and driving to SoFi, that just isn't something they're thinking about. So they're going to use the trains as much as possible. The trains do not go to the stadium, so there will be extra buses there. They're going to try to add, bus lanes to the existing highways. and streets around SoFi to get people from the train station to the stadium. So they're aware that traffic could be a problem. Another thing about those games, it is possible, if you look at the way the knockout rounds could play out, it is possible, although highly unlikely, that Argentina, I believe, could come here. The second place team in Group A, which is the group in Mexico, the second place team in Group A, which is likely to be Mexico or South Korea, they will come to SoFi for the round of 32, which will be a great draw. It'll either be Seoul in South Korea or Mexico. I talked to someone from the Mexican Federation. I was walking around D.C. on Sunday morning before my flight took off, and I ran into the Mexican Federation, and they were telling me that they kind of look at, if they had to come to L.A., that's almost a home game for them. So, that's something I'm looking forward to. And I do believe there is a path where the U.S. could come back for a knockout round game as well. So those knockout round games could be really good.
Yeah, listen, in terms of Los Angeles and what it's going to be, I'm really excited about that. I think that looking at what's sort of going to happen around Los Angeles and around, I mean, you saw Maya Yoshida at the World Cup draw, right? There was a reason for that. Los Angeles has a presence, and the LA Galaxy think that they have a presence around the World Cup as well. So let's see as we go forward how cross involved, and I think this has sort of been a criticism so far of, I think, all of Major League Soccer, is how linked are these two? How many, if you're watching Major League Soccer, how aware you are of the World Cup? And people are going, oh, well, I'm there. But are there commercials? Are you trying to tie the leagues together? This is a ownership group that has recently flipped the schedule, that has been counting on this World Cup bump to certainly pad their pockets and do everything. But there will be no bump unless MLS can sort of align itself with the World Cup and show that, hey, the World Cup is where, MLS players go to the World Cup. This is how many there are. This is where they're from. That means that you always have a team that you can cheer for, even if you have an MLS team. How many of us are going to be watching Joseph Paintsel play for Ghana, right? And Maya Yoshida's trying to make the Japanese World Cup team. If Maya Yoshida can make the Japanese World Cup team, how many games in Japan are Galaxy fans going to watch? There's an ability to turn, club fans, LA Galaxy fans, into different team World Cup fans besides just from where you're coming from. And can you convert people who are watching the World Cup into MLS fans as well? So there's a lot riding on this in terms of sponsorship dollars and eyes watching and everything that goes on. And I think that so far it feels like MLS has been at arm's distance from this. Now, this switches with the calendar switching in January, where now it really has to be a year where MLS not only has its league and does its thing, but it also has to figure out a way to tie itself in. And I think the LA Galaxy have to figure out a way to tie themselves in with the World Cup in Los Angeles. People are going to say it's two different things, but in order to get the bump and the rise and the viewership and the continued growth that they want to do, this is an important thing for MLS to get right and the LA Galaxy to get right as well. These are sponsorship dollars. These are fan dollars that can go in bunches of different directions. And how do you make sure you capitalize on sort of the rising tide lifts all boats type of thing here?
Well, every 4 years you keep hearing about the World Cup bump. There's going to be a World Cup bump. Everyone's going to watch the World Cup, and then they're going to want to go see their local MLS team. I'm not sure that's really happened. I do think it did happen in 2015 with the Women's World Cup team. When they won that World Cup, it was their first title in 16 years, and NWSL was in existence then. It was still a young league, and I think people wanted to go out and see Carly Lloyd and Alex Morgan and those people playing NWSL. I do think it worked then. I don't know that it's ever worked for MLS. And, again, the Galaxy, unlikely to have a player on the U.S. World Cup team. It'd be only the second time ever. The first time ever was 2022. It's going to be tough for the Galaxy, really, because Joseph Paintsel is not a star of that team, and that team is not expected to do all that well. It's going to be easier with LAFC with Son as the captain of South Korea, which is expected to do well. But I'll say MLS had a presence at the draw. The first day of the whole weekend, where we had, for media, was Thursday, where we came there and they kind of walked us through the draw, walked us through some of the protocols for the World Cup. It wasn't a mandatory day, but it was a very important day to be there. The whole thing lasted a couple of hours. After that, MLS provided buses to take anyone who wanted to go, reporters or whatever, over to Audi Field, where they had Don Garber gave his state of the league address. There was an event with Taylor Twellman. It was sort of a cocktail, a meet and greet. And MLS told me they did that mainly for the European writers. They wanted to expose them to the league and what the league was about. And then, MLS kind of got out of Dodge because they had their final in Miami on Saturday. And by the way, the MLS MVP, the Landon Donovan MVP, will be announced this week. And Don Garber said he's going to Miami for the announcement. So I'll let you guess who you think won it. But yeah, I do agree that this is a MLS. Its TV contract is up in 2027. It's now been shortened, so they will begin negotiation on a new TV contract right around the time of the World Cup.
Yep.
If soccer takes off, people come to MLS games because of the World Cup bump. They're going to make millions more in the TV contract. If that doesn't happen, all of a sudden the MLS TV contract is sort of a white elephant. Maybe nobody wants it.
Yeah, Matt in the chat room says you have to win to get the bump, so you need the U.S. to do well, which I think. Listen, with the expanded teams and everything going on, I think that that the group stage will be a lot more cut and dry. Not saying that there aren't going to be surprises, but I think that the group stages are going to you're going to see some lopsided goal differentials in the group stages, and I think that means that for the most part you're going to see the better teams get out of the group. Right, and that's usually the case, but I think it's even more so whenever you see the added teams that come in. You're not adding the better teams, Kevin. You're adding teams that are lower on the FIFA ranking list.
Right, and to make the round of 32 work, we never had a round of 32 before. To make it work, you have to allow 8 of the 12 third-place teams to go through. So you look at the last 2 World Cups. Germany, it's a 4-time champion. They didn't get out of group play in the last 2 World Cups. They won 2 games combined in Russia and Qatar. They're not going to go out in the group stage this time. They're going to go through. And what does that mean? Well, if they suck and they didn't get out of group play, maybe they weren't a good team. No, you know what? Maybe they had a bad game. One of their 3 games was a bad game, and that's all it takes.
Right.
A team like a Germany, some of the favorites, they get into the round of 32, even as a third-place team. They're going to put it together. So I think you're going to see you'll see some upset games.
Right.
I think, for example, Curacao. Don't sleep on Curacao. I think they could definitely make the round of 32. They're going to be we're going to have Cinderella teams like the NCAA tournament, and I think Curacao is one of those. They're going to win the tournament? No. And Spain and Germany, Brazil and Argentina, the favorites. They're going to get through in good fashion, and but there will be some surprise teams that will win a game somewhere and that may make it to the round of 32 or even the round of 16. That will be kind of fun. Other than that, though, I'm really not in favor of the expansion. There's 211 FIFA countries now. 48 of them, roughly 1/4, are going to the World Cup. It's kind of like when they expand the NFL playoffs, or the NHL playoffs, and you get the teams with losing records in the playoffs. That shouldn't happen. It should be elite to get to the playoffs. You have to be an elite team to get to the World Cup.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly see how that all plays out. But that is there. We did, and we mentioned it, and I think it's a good way to go. But the LA Galaxy no longer defending MLS Cup champions. That goes to Inter Miami, who beat the Vancouver Whitecaps 3-1 in what I would say was a very entertaining game with 25 minutes to go, just a 1-1 game before Miami eventually pulled away 3-1. Vancouver at the tie point it had a shot that hit off both posts, stayed out, and then the rebound went off the outside of the post on that as well. So I think, you're talking about a couple of inches difference here, and perhaps it was Vancouver who would have won that game. Still, if you are a fan of Major League Soccer, if you're a fan of wanting the world to pay attention, if you're a fan of all that stuff, Messi and Inter Miami winning is probably a good thing. It certainly elevates the news of MLS and elevates the champions of MLS, Inter Miami, to all the way across the world. That certainly helps. Probably less so it would have been with Vancouver. Not saying that they wouldn't have gotten something great, but I thought those were that it was a good game to sort of show at the end there. And now Inter Miami gets to open their new stadium with a star over their shield. So that's going to be something that I think has some carryover into next year. Messi coming back, but some retirements on that team. So there's going to be reloading and everything else that sort of goes into that. So I thought that was really interesting.
A couple of things about that game. Vancouver, as you mentioned, really unlucky, dominated the game, huge edge in time of possession. Edge in shots. I thought Miami's goalkeeper was really good. But when what you were talking about before with the World Cup bounce and MLS, I heard some commentary about, Inter Miami is the team with all the European stars who are about to retire, and Vancouver is the team with the European star who came out of retirement to play, but don't call this a retirement league. There might be a little truth to that, but when you talk about the World Cup, it's so important that Messi is coming back. And I think MLS is going to ride Argentina as hard as they can, hoping they go far in the tournament, because every time there's a pregame show anywhere in the world, they're going to say, and here comes Argentina with Leo Messi, and they're going to show him in a Inter Miami kit, and they're going to say, he led his team to the championship of the local domestic league, MLS. I think having Messi on the champion, playing in the United States for Argentina, the defending World Cup champion, I kind of think that's what you were talking about. That's the best advertisement for MLS. And the further they go in the tournament, and having Messi still there in Inter Miami, having re-signed, that is a really good thing for MLS. Whether it makes a difference or not, we don't know, but it's their best shot.
Yeah, and I think that'll certainly get played. So that's it. All the teams now. One thing is, and I certainly like this. This from Tom Bogert. David Beckham becomes the first person to win an MLS Cup as a player and then as an owner. So that's a pretty big deal, especially whenever you go back to Kevin. The fact that they said, "Hey, David, whenever you come to Major League Soccer, we'll give you the right to buy a franchise for, I think it was like $35 million, if I remember correctly." And then at some point, MLS said, "Hey, we'll buy you out of that, right, for $50 million. We'll give you $50 million, and then you don't have the right to buy a franchise for $35 million anymore." And the fact that he said no, the fact that he kept it, the fact that he did all that stuff is pretty interesting story, and certainly has a lot of Galaxy ties to it, with David Beckham being an LA Galaxy player. So just some interesting sort of tie-ins with that and how that all went. I don't know. It's nice to sort of see that come around. And by the way, congratulations to Mr. Sir David Beckham there. Did it for the Galaxy and now has a team that did it for Miami. I still think that's a cool accomplishment.
He's the first player and then owner to win. Has there been a player who went on to coach and win as a coach?
I'm sure there has been to win both. Chat, help me out. Has there ever been? No, because Schelotto would have been one, right? If he could have won an MLS Cup with the LA Galaxy, because he won an MLS Cup. I'm sure there's one I'm not thinking of. Like it's going to be. Did Ben Olsen win one with DC United, and then they never won one whenever he was coach, so that doesn't count. No, I don't know. Kevin. It's a good question. I don't have it off the top of my head. So we'll certainly take a look at it and see what that is. But yeah, that's an interesting side note as well. I mean, it's a crazy story. If you think about it from where David Beckham came from and trying to do that in the Premier League, unless you're a player that somehow it wouldn't even help to hit the Powerball. Somehow had a gigantic, huge business opportunity that they sold for afterwards that gave them billions of dollars. They were able to, buy one of these top teams and then become an owner. I mean, you don't see that, and you don't see it crossing over. And I'm certainly aware that David Beckham is, with Jorge Mas there, that it's still Mas and his money that is really, carrying that team. But at the same time, David Beckham's the owner there. He's got it. Those guys are rolling in cash right now. They did what they said they were supposed to do,
Yep, they did. They kept their promise.
They did.
They spent a lot of money to do it, by the way.
Yeah, they absolutely did. So now they get to reload. They get to do a whole bunch of stuff. So we'll certainly watch that as we go. Tom Bogert saying that now all 30 MLS teams are officially in off-season mode. Again, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern is free agency opens. Thursday is the re-entry draft. You have roster decisions still coming from San Diego, Vancouver, and Miami. So those should be coming out. If they didn't come out today, I didn't see them, but I was busy working for most of the day and didn't get to see that. So that's coming up. One of the things, obviously, we've sort of already talked about and hinted at the beginning of the show is this official draw coming up for the Concacaf Champions Cup. Now, this happens tomorrow, Tuesday at 4 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. It's on YouTube, so make sure that you can go to concacaf.com and click there, and it'll take you to the YouTube link there. But you have all of your teams now lined up for this draw. There's still some, I think, that have to be determined by some winners coming in from the Caribbean or some other places. I think there might still be one or two up in the air, but for the most part, everything's there. Here's the big deal. and I talked about it at the beginning, I'll talk about it again, Kevin, is that the big deal about the LA Galaxy's draw isn't where are they going to be placed and who are they playing. I think that's almost secondary at this point. It's whether or not they're going to be able to compete in Coachella Valley Invitational. There are going to be two pots, and I had a long conversation with somebody today in order to try to figure some of this stuff out. I will tell you these are generalizations, and this is what we sort of believe could happen with this draw and why it's important to watch. But there are two pots. There's a pot A and a pot B. By their finish in Leagues Cup, by their MLS Cup win last year, by even their play this year, the LA Galaxy, I think, are the 9th best team in Concacaf right now, by all the rankings that they sort of put out. So that puts them in the upper half of everything, and that puts them into pot A. Right now, there's the only thing that we're really looking at here is whether or not there's a schedule, and apparently there's a 1A schedule, right? Which is you're in pot A, and you have this 1A schedule, which would have you play the early game on the road in February, which could then mean that the LA Galaxy would not be able to attend Coachella Valley Invitational, or they're putting into the 1B schedule. And the 1B schedule says that basically they'd be on the road in I think the second week of February, which would then allow them to be part of Coachella Valley Invitational and do all this stuff. It pushes everything back a week. So that's sort of the schedule that they're looking at. It seems like everything is lined up for the Galaxy to get that 1B schedule. And I know the Galaxy through the president have said, hey, this is our preferred time because we have to be able to go to Coachella Valley Invitational. We want to be able to have that. So it works best for us to do this. There are some things like San Diego and Nashville are also going to be in this draw, Kevin. And there is a rule that says that you need 6 weeks off for the off season, basically. And San Diego played late and Nashville played late, right? And so their 6 weeks getting into January and doing all that stuff might have CONCACAF switch them into the 1B schedule instead of the 1A schedule. And that means the Galaxy could possibly go into the 1A schedule. We're just sort of watching what those are. Now, we think there will be some clarity tomorrow after the draw, but that's not 100%. Okay, if there is clarity and everybody knows what it is and the games sort of are announced and we know what the schedule is, then you will be notified. We will, and by the way, it'll come out fast, I'm sure, because the Galaxy will want to say, hey, we're going to Coachella Valley Invitational, which would be the first indication that, they have that 1B schedule that lines it up, and that they have the games that are going to be at Coachella Valley probably scheduled, right? And so you will know that like almost immediately. As soon as they know, they're going to launch that as well, because obviously they're playing behind the 8 ball here with Coachella Valley Invitational coming up in, January and February. So, yes.
I wonder, by the way, I've answered my own question. Peter Vermees won a MLS Cup as a player and as a coach.
There it is. Thank you.
I wonder if the Galaxy can go quietly or publicly to CONCACAF and say, gee, this would really help us and help, a lot of teams out if we could go to be in Coachella. And, if you have a start at this date, there are 9 MLS teams in the tournament. And as you mentioned, a number of playoff teams, Vancouver, Seattle was a playoff team, San Diego, LAFC, another playoff team, Inter Miami, right? They're in there. They're a playoff team. So there is some traffic that they have to negotiate. And by the way, just to make sure everyone's clear, when you say 6 weeks, that's not 6 weeks between games. So in other words, you could play a game in late January. No, we're talking about 6 weeks of mandated team activities. In other words, a practice. You can't start within that 6 week window. Players have to be free of any team obligations for 6 full weeks uninterrupted. And so they can't even start training until 6 weeks after their final game.
Yeah, there is that gap in there. Now, here's the other thing, because I certainly saw some of this on social media and people were going, this could be the last Coachella Valley Invitational. I will say pump your brakes on that. I think, first of all, if we're reading between the lines, and I think we have to read it between the lines at this time because there's not going to be anything concrete that comes out, but let's read between the lines. If we're reading between the lines, I know that next year in 2027 we have a 14-game sprint, that's going to take place. There's probably going to have to be a preseason for that, though, right, Kevin? Like, you would want people to warm up and play some games and sort of get ready for the 14-game sprint that happens. What better place if you need a warm up, then this Coachella Valley Invitational tournament that's already set up, the fields are already reserved, and everything's already ready to go. So I think suggesting that, you know, the CVI dies this year is premature. I will also say this, and I've said it on this before. I have the same feeling and the same discussions and the same talk around CVI possibly being sort of a mid-season break whenever we go to the to the new schedule. And there's going to be this winter break that happens, right? 6 weeks, basically, like mid-December to, I think, beginning of February type thing. And whenever that happens, well, let's see. You have all these teams, Kevin. They probably need to, I don't know, keep in shape during the time. Maybe there's a in-season tournament that could possibly be played, in a place where the weather's wonderful. Come out to the desert, get all the snowbirds who are, all these teams in Minnesota and Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal and maybe New York City up in the cold. Maybe they could say, hey, why don't you go down to the desert in Coachella and watch your team play these either games that don't count, they're just friendlies, and everybody's just trying to stay in shape and do all that stuff. What I'm trying to say is here that CVI seems to me to be able to have a life even into the new schedule, and it may even be a bigger deal as it's this mid-season break that guys go out there and do this. So I tend to believe that CVI has plenty of legs, and I think that the LA Galaxy and I think Major League Soccer, I think they all are sort of thinking along those same times. I think that there's going to be more Coachella Valley Invitationals here in the years to come, and I think that there's a lot of people who expect that will carry forward.
Well, I think MLS, from what I understand, was very happy with the MLS's back tournament during COVID. There were things not to like, the COVID thing, teams testing positive for the coronavirus, stuff like that, but that's beyond the control. Just the way the tournament came together and came off, I thought they were very happy with it. So I think that they would be very open to the idea of a tournament at a single site. Maybe we have the West Coast here and the East Coast teams play in Florida. The idea of trying to package this sort of kind of like spring training in baseball, which is super popular. And don't forget, Dan Beckerman, we talked about this last week. He's been talked about as a possible replacement for Don Garber as commissioner. I don't think that's a wise decision. I don't think it'll happen. But the point is, he's a very powerful guy in MLS. And if he goes and kind of pushes this, look, everybody, I got this tournament. It's a great tournament. A number of you guys have been there. You all liked it. Why don't we make this, a standalone sort of tournament where everyone comes and plays a number of games? Maybe they count, maybe they don't. It's certainly something that's going to have to be talked about and taken seriously. So
that's just my whole thing is, let's pump the brakes on it dying. Let's pump the brakes on it being over. Let's just understand that there are ways for CVI to sort of go, and we will find out whether or not the LA Galaxy will be available at CVI this year. And by the way, I think that's a huge blow to the tournament if they're not. So I can understand why the Galaxy want it to be. Also, because pushing the games up, a week or 2 weeks earlier for the LA Galaxy is not going to be good for them in terms of being ready to play and ready to go. So having the games later into that 1B schedule is the better lineup for most MLS teams, and that's why most MLS teams end up into that schedule. So we'll watch. I was joking around with somebody, and they're like, "Hey, we could always get Concacaf in this, So you think everything's going great, and we know Concacaf. So anything is up in the air at this time. But that's what we're sort of looking at. There's some, again, the San Diego Nashville sides of this in terms of having the 6-week break and needing that might be a complication that causes the Galaxy some heartache. But we'll see. We'll see what happens whenever the draw is. And that Concacaf Champions Cup draw, again, is coming up tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, and you can find that on YouTube. Just go to concacaf.com, and the YouTube link will be there. So we'll be able to watch that draw and sort of see how that goes. I'm anticipating it'll be slightly shorter than the World Cup draw, just slightly, maybe by an hour and 50 minutes. But one can hope.
Who gets the Peace Prize?
I don't think CONCACAF made theirs up yet, so you're in the running for it. That's what happened. We'll see how that goes. So that's the CONCACAF draw. That's the World Cup. That's sort of where we put everything. Now, the LA Galaxy won an award, postseason awards, and it's the Major League Soccer postseason awards. We know that there's the Business Intelligence Project of the Year, and the Doug Hamilton Executive of the Year, which actually is a really cool one. The Sporting Executive of the Year. Those are big ones. The LA Galaxy got the Marissa Colalano Community Impact Club of the Year, and it was for all of their stuff that they did during for the community and into those community events they had. One of the big things that, Kevin, as you know, I am a big fan of is the LA Galaxy's unified team. And I listen, Gabe, who's in charge of the LA Galaxy Foundation, is just like the most amazing guy. And I joked around, and I have on this, but like I am 100% a fan for this LA Galaxy unified team. So I'm so stoked that the Galaxy Foundation was able to win this award because of some of the work that they did with Special Olympics and the unified team. There was also 800, I think, plus hours of donated time between, employees and alumni and players and all that stuff. So there was a lot of really good stuff. I'm glad that they did. I'm glad that they got this. It's one of those things that personally, in terms of the unified team, that I'm just going to keep pushing. I tweeted out, and I'll say it here too. This year, we're going to figure out a game that the unified team is playing in. We're going to focus in on it, and we're going to get that stadium packed because I think those partners and those athletes deserve it. So I'm on the train for that, and I'm excited for it.
No, so do you know who Marissa Cola? I think it's Coliano. It's Cola-I-Ano.
Yeah.
Not Wayne Gretzky. Not to be Wayne Gretzky. I'm going to try to pronounce things accurately from now on. Do you know who she was?
No.
I looked this up because it's kind of cool. One thing that with some of these awards, not all of them, MLS names their awards after people.
Right.
And kind of cool that MVP is the Landon Donovan MVP award. It's the Ziggy Schmidt Coach of the Year award. And the Doug Hamilton, by the way, Executive of the Year award. The Galaxy, 3 of the awards are named after Galaxy people. Doug Hamilton, of course, Galaxy president, was president, CEO, or general manager. Landon Donovan played for the Galaxy. He coached there twice. And these are, the MLS has named these awards after Galaxy people. But so Marissa worked for the Colorado Rapids and worked in their. She was the senior manager of community relations department. She died at 32 in 2012. Excuse me. She died at 32 in 2012 from complications from multiple sclerosis. But apparently, she was terrific at her job in community relations, and she was a mentor and sort of an inspiration to a lot of other women who wanted to go in sports, especially in the Colorado area. With the football team, basketball team, hockey teams there, was a pillar of the community. And so kind of maybe someone who's a little unknown nationally, but, kudos to MLS to sort of every year these awards come out. People like me are going to go look her up and find out about her, learn about her. And it's kind of cool. But, and by the way, the Vancouver Whitecaps cleaned up on these awards. They got 3. They got the Sporting Executive of the Year, Axel Schuster. They got Communications Department of the Year. I've worked with them. I'll attest to their excellent performance. And also Business Intelligence Project of the Year, which leads to the next part of this conversation you and I had in the ill-fated run-up to this when we were still talking on and seeing each other. I think these awards are, not to take away from anybody who won anything, but I'm looking at the list of the awards. San Diego won Consumer Products Initiative of the Year. I don't even know what that is. Columbus Crew won Marketing Initiative of the Year. Chicago Fire Stadium Business Initiative of the Year. That's great. I'm glad these people are, being recognized for their initiatives, but I don't think it has to be a league-wide thing. It's looked like every team got something, and they just feel to me like participation trophies. LA Galaxy or LAFC rather got Sponsorship Activation of the Year. Again, what is that? LAFC can give their people bonuses and a little, FIFA Peace Prize if they want. But do they really have to be active league-wide awards that these teams win every year? It seems a little silly.
I will say this, and I told you this before we started. These awards aren't for you. These are like the Grammys or the Emmys or the Oscars. It's about an organization and a large organization like Major League Soccer celebrating its own people. And you can be like, okay, cool. It's like I'm a member of an association for the type of business that we do, right? And they give out awards every year for that. Like and by the way, there's probably a press release out there somewhere that you could find that would show like these awards. Does anybody care? No, right? In general, nobody cares, but it's not really for the general public. This is for Major League Soccer. So I have no problems with it. I don't care. I think that there's some people who do amazing work, like Gabe, with his community stuff. And I'm glad that maybe he's getting some recognition for it. 800 plus hours volunteered, 2 million in monetary and in-kind donations to Los Angeles community, 4,000 plus pounds of recyclables, 56 organizations amplified and supported, over 5,000 youth served through development programming. For somebody who spends a lot of their time trying to promote and inclusion with special needs groups, I love this stuff, and I think that getting the recognition is awesome. So again, it may not be for you. You may not like it. Like in terms of, and by the way, not saying you don't like it, like you're angry at it. It's just like you're sort of indifferent at it, and that's fine too. I don't think that matters. But again, they're not for you, or they're not for everybody. I'm glad some people got some recognition for it. I'm sure in their industry, all of these people are really thrilled that they got this award. I think the Galaxy won like an activation or a sponsorship or an ad thing at one point. And it was whenever Zlatan came in and they had the whole with the lion and, you know, the Zlatan with the full page ad in the Los Angeles Times and like all that stuff. I mean, that was, you're like, hey, you got one of the biggest players in the world. You put together you put together this advertisement and to sort of say that is something that you're like, you nailed it. You hit it out of the park and you deserve those awards. But every industry has these types of awards, so it doesn't bother me very much.
No, that was the good old days back when we sold advertising. I remember days.
Ooh, fun. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's I guess I'm not upset about the awards. I'm not upset about anything.
Right.
It's not the awards. It's sort of the MLS sending out this release and saying, look at all this stuff. You're right. You know, keep it in house. Hey, MLS have a awards banquet every year, give out these awards. That's great. People do need to be recognized for these things that don't happen on the field. You're absolutely right about that. But I guess the idea of when I saw the press release, I looked at that and said, MLS wants us to care about this? I mean, really?
Yeah.
And with the Galaxy Award, you're absolutely right. I mean, what they do with that team is amazing, and it should be recognized. I'm sure there are some other things on this list of sort of unsung heroes that have did amazing things. But that, you know, when there's, you know, they give out the MVP, Coach of the Year, and then 110 other awards, just seems like it feels like a participation award, and it shouldn't. And maybe that's my problem. It shouldn't feel like that. You know, these people should have their sort of day in the sun, but you know, don't try to make it look like, you know, the same award that Leo Messi gets.
Yeah. $5 super chat from I believe Mago. Unpopular opinion: unless you're lounging field side, the CVI is mediocre. We should bring some teams that are on winter break in Europe over to CVI. I mean, I think here's the thing about CVI. CVI is awesome if you love soccer and you love being up close to the teams in that spring training environment. There's people who hate Major League Baseball spring training, and there's some people who, like my mother, who goes, I think every year, is, you know, enamored with the spring training sort of process and everything that goes on. That's what CVI is. Your chance to get up close, to get personal, to hear the players yell at each other, and to watch them as, you know, you sort of build this excitement towards the rest of the year. So certainly something there. Excuse me, I knew I was going to cough there. I saw this. Somebody put together basically the MLS Super Draft and the outcomes of the Super Draft. And I found this very interesting in terms of who's selected, who's not, and how this sort of goes. So there's a chart out here, and I'm sure we'll get into this, you know, more and more. But basically, you know, you had 320. This was in the 2025 MLS Super Draft. You had 320 U.S. domestic players. You had 157 international players, right? And, you know, between everything, it was mostly seniors at 226, and then there was, you know, graduates or fifth years that made up a small percentage. But you had 106 juniors, you know, and so you're sort of looking at that, and you're like, okay, so nearly 75 55% of the players selected in the MLS Super Draft in 2025 were U.S. domestic, and 42.2% were seniors. And so you sort of get an idea of where all these guys going. And then 64.4% of the drafted players signed contracts, and 30 returned to the NCAA. 5 players didn't sign contracts. But of the 44 players who attended the MLS College Showcase, only 30 of them were selected, right? So there's going to be the showcase. You're going to watch it, and we're sort of going to see how it goes. But if you look at the MLS Super Draft, Kevin, 70.6% of the eligible draftees did not sign professional contracts in 2025. So you only got a small percentage of that. So only only less than 30% of the total eligible players signed professionally, and the majority of those signed within MLS and MLS Next Pro, right? So 30% is what you're looking at whenever you're looking at the MLS Super Draft and everything. And being the MLS Super Draft is coming up, I just thought this was an interesting chart. So please feel free to peruse. I'm sure we'll bring it back up here in just a little bit.
Well, in college soccer, I mean, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, I haven't done much to investigate it, obviously, or I wouldn't be asking this question, but it seems like college soccer is on its deathbed, right? It's on the way out?
No. College soccer is on the cusp of being year-round. And whenever it becomes year-round, I think it becomes a viable choice for people to use college soccer. That's what I think. You're not wrong, though. Like, in terms of the general, overall, like 70% of the people didn't sign contracts, right? Like, I get that point. But what I'm saying is that I think that this is going to sort of shift some things in college soccer. If college soccer goes year-round, which sort of mimics more of what we have now at the professional levels, I think it might become a viable option. I think everybody understands, and I think maybe you're seeing the warning signs. I think everybody understands something needs to change in college soccer. And they've been trying to go to this year-round schedule now for, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years? It's been a while, but it seems like it might actually be happening. So we'll certainly watch MLS Draft as it comes up. Now, final thing for tonight, and I want to talk about some transfers and some rumors and some stuff that are sort of out there. One is we don't have any sort of major news or anything like that. There has been some. Hold on, there has been some rumors that Ethan Horvath, goalkeeper, is going to leave Sheffield Wednesday and is considered a move to MLS. And there was an article that had the LA Galaxy as well as the New York Red Bull as possibly a landing spot for him to sort of go. So he's a Colorado native. He's under contract with Cardiff City apparently until January 2nd, 2026. And therefore that's coming up here rapidly. Horvath is 30. Do the LA Galaxy need another goalkeeper? Well, if they're bringing another one in again, Kevin, then there has to be more to what's going on behind the scenes with JT Marcinkowski and Ethan Horvath. So interested to sort of see how that plays out. The other one that's been rumored around right now is that Maya Yoshida could possibly be going back to Japan, and that could happen as early as this winter. I think that Maya is going to look specifically at what he needs to do for World Cup and anything else he's trying to accomplish, if that's even a possibility. But Nagasaki is the team. It's technically his hometown club, but I think he left there whenever he was 12, so it's not like he has this super long history with it. And then I think at 22 he went on his world journey, so he hasn't been playing, in Japan for quite a long time. So that would be interesting to see. That is one of the pieces that could move whenever you're looking at the LA Galaxy's sort of heaviness at center back and guys that they're going to possibly have to get rid of. We were sort of looking at what would happen in that center back's position. So Zonka is one of those. You have Maya Yoshida there. In my opinion, it would be better if you could move Zonka, but you're probably going to have to move one of those. And if Maya Yoshida has a place to go, maybe he goes, maybe he doesn't. I don't know that there's any validity to either of these. I'm just sort of sharing some of the stuff that goes around. The one thing that I can tell everybody is that I did have some conversations in the last couple days, and the LA Galaxy are busy. And I know they're busy. So there are offers out there right now. You're talking about free agents. You're talking about internationals. You're talking about trades. All of those things are out in the wind right now. I think, Kevin, as I said, I screwed up an analogy in our pregame sort of talk, was that I said, the reels are in the water and they're starting to fish. So the trolling has begun for the LA Galaxy in terms of trying to find those next things. I think you're going to start hearing, one, what those deals are, and two, some of the results of those here in the next couple weeks, whether that's the end of this week or next week. With free agency starting on Wednesday, that's going to certainly start to move some stuff around. So everybody's sort of waiting till I think Wednesday until you can actually talk to free agents. And so once they can, they will go out and make those official offers and go all that stuff for the other thing. Adam asked, $2 super chat, by the way, is there anybody free agents you realistically get to see for the LA Galaxy? I would love to see somebody make a case for Joseph Martinez possibly coming to the LA Galaxy. I think that's pipe dream in terms of how much you can do, but keeping Royce, get Ricky Puig, Joseph Paintsil, Gabriel Peck, and then putting Joseph Martinez into either a winger role and having Paintsil play the 9 or vice versa. I think the LA Galaxy could do something there. I don't know that that's realistic. I think there's probably more realistic free agents in terms of just some bread and butter guys. And I know the LA Galaxy are looking into the midfield at sort of a guy who is, sort of in their prime and could add to that midfield. But you can always change your priorities whenever you start some of this stuff. So that's sort of what I have on the LA Galaxy and their thing. We know that there are offers out. We know that there are talks, trades, free agents, internationals, all that stuff is in play right now. And I think we're going to start seeing some of those chips fall through here. And, this is plan A stuff, Kevin, right? You're making your plan A's. Usually by the time you get into your early season, you're already through plan D. In terms of how many times you had to sort of change different things and go different ways and which guys are available, which guys aren't. So interesting to see.
One of the things you mentioned is that, or at least what you said, sort of when we were doing show prep, is that they're looking at everything. They're in on everything. It's not, we know that they wanted some midfield help. We know that they were talking about some depth, which is maybe not a starter on the back line. And they really want one, if not two forwards. So we know that that's kind of our center forward. So that's the kind of stuff they were looking at. But, again, hearing that they're in on everything is a good sign, because what that means is, like, maybe you don't need a starting center back. Maybe you're happy with the guys you have. But one becomes available. So you trade for him or you sign him. Well, all of a sudden, the guys you thought were going to be starters, now they become available in trade. And maybe that's the move that gets you what you really wanted. So the idea that the Galaxy are casting a wide net is a really good thing, because, again, if you say, they've signed a center back, you might say, well, they don't need a center back. Well, again, that frees them up to do other things. So don't necessarily, take the first signing of the first move as, the one the Galaxy were waiting all fall to do. It may not have anything to do with that at all. It may be setting up another move down the road. So, and again, the other part is we'll do our best to sort of look at this stuff and find out what's true and what's not. When you start hearing rumors about, Cristiano Ronaldo coming and Lewandowski is on his way, and don't necessarily believe those. This is the time of the year when very few European soccer fans know much about MLS. They know the Galaxy, they know some of the other teams, they know Inter Miami now. So when they talk about a player going from the Premier League to MLS, that player is going to the Galaxy because that's the only team they know. So don't believe all of these rumors. There may be players coming to MLS that aren't coming to the Galaxy. There may be players that aren't coming to MLS at all, but their agents are floating rumors. We'll try to do our best to let you know what's true and what's not.
Yeah, as soon as those actually become real things that we can talk about in a real way. Some of this stuff is just abstract. I heard there's this rumor that Mauricio Cuevas is being shopped as well. One, I suggested that early in the offseason that would be somebody who could possibly be wanted around the league and could get some value for the LA Galaxy, both inside the league, outside the league. So it wouldn't surprise me. But two is I haven't heard anything major from that. So we'll see what sort of comes of that, and we'll keep our eye on it. Again, you have three people for one spot. You have Harbor Miller and Mauricio Cuevas and then Miki Amane. And so my suggestion was that you could find a place for Miki Amane somewhere to go, and then you could rely on Cuevas and Harbor Miller. But maybe you don't want to do that. There's a way to save some money on that, because both Miller and Cuevas are lower salary cap hits than you have for Miki Amane, who I think was in that $600,000-$700,000 range, if I remember correctly. So You're talking about a guy who does take a significant amount and an international slot, and so you could switch that out and possibly do some stuff. We'll see how that sort of comes in. Adam, by the way, says $5 super chat. Do you see both Zimmerman and Espinosa getting new contracts with their current teams? Zimmerman, I think, is done with Nashville. I don't think he's going back there. He was a DP, and now he's going to go somewhere else. They seem to play a little bit of higher line, and Zimmerman's a little bit older in the tooth now, and I'm interested, Kevin, to see where he lands. I think he's going to be good. I think you're going to find him as one of the higher paid defenders in terms of a domestic defender, but you're not going to find designated player money there anymore. And so what does that contract actually look like, and what does he want to play for, and how does that one work is an interesting one. And Espinosa coming from San Jose, it seems like Bruce is flipping the bed over and shaking everything out right now. So for me, Espinosa's been playing in Major League Soccer for a long time, by the way, since 2019, I believe. 2019. He has 218 games played, 211 games started, almost 20,000 minutes in Major League Soccer, 36 goals, 70 assists. Had 4 goals, 12 assists. Last year for San Jose, had 4 goals, 14 assists. In 2024 and 2023, he had 13 goals. That was sort of his high, so that's the high mark there. But, you look at his goals and assists, and you're into that 16 range for last year. It's not bad. 31 games played, 30 games started. That's pretty good for a guy there. So, again, I think there's going to be a lot of different guys sort of trying to figure stuff out. But at 30 years old, he's sort of right on that edge of getting a 2-year, 3-year contract that sort of ends his time in probably Major League Soccer. That's my guess.
And when you look at guys that might be a good fit with the Galaxy, I think you're right, Joseph. Martinez's profile fits what the Galaxy need on the field. He doesn't seem to be a good locker room guy.
I could agree.
I think the Galaxy have a great locker room. I think actually that's one of their huge strengths. I hate to see that upset. I wonder if Benteke might be a guy who was signed for maybe a little less than he could get elsewhere to play with the two wingers the Galaxy have, Peck and Paintsel, to try to say, look, I am that golden shoe guy. I'm the golden boot guy from a couple of years ago. I just had a rough season with the right people around me. I'm a designated player again, and maybe he wants to come prove that with the Galaxy. But you mentioned San Jose, and when we were talking a lot about Coachella, I can't stop but think about when I went to Coachella with you, and I saw San Diego FC a couple times, and I remember coming back and saying, my God, that must be one of the worst teams I've ever seen. They're horrible, and they were at the time. They were terrible.
Right.
They go on and make the Western Conference final. So obviously I was really wrong about that. I'm wondering, what now that the season's over, do you have any special takeaways? I mean, I thought everything went pretty much to form. I don't think there was, at the top of the tables, I don't think there was a ton of surprises. Philadelphia coming back to be as good as they used to be without Jim Kirk. A little bit. I thought Vancouver had a great season, but I was also surprised. I'm really surprised Bruce didn't get San Jose to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vancouver's a surprise for me. I think the LA Galaxy and the way they started was a huge surprise. I certainly didn't see that in anything in the way that they started that season. Whether it was at Coachella. I'll never forget, and I hold this to heart, Dave Sarek, I once had a question. I once was talking to him, and I said, hey, Dave, I know you're out there warming up with the guys. Is there anything that you look at that sort of tells you what it goes for? And he goes, this is the same whether it's preseason or whether it's, in the middle of the season or stuff like that, is that sometimes the guys warm up, they play great. Sometimes in preseason you play great and you end up having a really good season and you're like, yep, I saw that coming, because you could just sort of see it. And then sometimes they warm up real great and you have a bad game, or you have good preseason and it's bad. And you're like, oh man, I didn't see that coming. You don't know it until you're there, right? And it's one of those things that you just can't tell. And so preseason means relatively nothing unless preseason means something. Like as it goes with San Diego. Did preseason mean anything for San Diego? No. And you're like, okay, cool. And then you go and watch what they do in the regular season. It's like, yeah, preseason meant nothing. So I look at that more than anything, is that you don't know. And I think there's always going to be surprises. I think Philadelphia was a little bit of a surprise in just going to Bradley Carnell and what they were able to do with the Supporter Shield. I will say once again that Moneyball falls short whenever it comes to the playoffs, and we've sort of seen that. I thought Vancouver was an incredibly deep team. They also had a lot of guys. I'm interested to see whether or not they can sort of rally around that and find something there that maybe they didn't find before. And I think there was a quote afterwards from Vancouver's coach, and he said, we're crying tears, but they're happy tears because we gave Vancouver people in Vancouver something to want to watch and want to come to the stadium for, right? And I thought that was good. So I'm excited to see if they can sort of match that, especially with Vancouver being for sale, and how that goes in, and what a season they had for it being on sale and everything else. So I just think that's a really interesting take on it. But yeah, I mean. Surprises, yeah, there were surprises probably throughout the whole year. I expected Miami would eventually fall off, and they stuck in it this year, so it wasn't the same as last year. I was surprised at the teams that faltered in the playoffs. I was surprised that LAFC faltered when they did. I was surprised that Philadelphia exited as fast. I was surprised FC Cincinnati exited when they did. I thought they were a better team. And now you have to wonder for Pat Noonan and those guys over there in Cincinnati, has that window passed, right? We look at windows. It seems like Philadelphia might be opening theirs back up again, and so maybe you can see a run for Philadelphia. But is Cincinnati's window on the way out now? Is Columbus's window on the way out with Wilfred Nancy gone as coach? So is Columbus windows closed? And Columbus was a team that you sort of expected to be better this year than they were, and them sort of bowing out. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see how a lot of these things transition and how you build momentum and how you don't build momentum. New York Red Bulls missing the playoffs, right? New coach and everything else that's probably going to happen there. Are they going to be able to finally put together a team that shows shows the ability to win an MLS Cup? And then, of course, here on Corner of the Galaxy, we're going to be focused on the LA Galaxy. Does anything that happened in the second half of this season matter to the start of the beginning of next year? And how does that even play with CONCACAF Champions Cup and everything else is going? Has there been enough groundwork? Is there enough momentum that was carried over? Did Greg Vanney learn enough things? Did Will Kuntz and the brain trust that is in there trying to reload, are they able to find some better pieces to upgrade what the LA Galaxy had? Because if we're saying, hey, the LA Galaxy end of the season, we're at this level, and what is that level? Mid-table, right? Whenever you look at some of the things, if they're at mid-table, what takes them to the next? And is it Ricky Pouge? And can Ricky be the guy? I mean, the question marks write themselves because there are going to be so many, and there's going to be changes to this roster. Greg Vanney hinted at it. I think certainly Will Kuntz has talked about it and hinted at it. But the roster that you see now, Kevin, as you were certainly talking to some people, is not the roster you're going to see whenever January comes around.
Well, you said something really interesting, which was the Moneyball thing kind of falters in the playoffs. And as you were talking, I was thinking, you look at Moneyball, of course, came out of baseball, and you look at baseball and the Dodgers with Ohtani or Mookie Betts or whomever you want to say is their star player. He's going to get 4 at-bats a game, and maybe we'll never, if he's Ohtani, he's a designated hitter, never going to have the ball hit to him. He's never going to have to play defense. And he gets 4 at-bats. He gets 4 opportunities in a game to do something. So, really a superstar in baseball can't necessarily take over a game. It happens occasionally, right? And we saw that in the World Series sometimes. But my point was going to be, soccer is that one place where you get into a playoff game where one player can change the course of the game. And the Galaxy certainly missed their superstar player, right? Ricky Pouge. We'll see what happens when he comes back. Yes, you need those pieces. A forward can't score goals if he gets no service. A midfielder can't be a playmaker if he doesn't get the ball from the back line. So yes, you need your teammates, but it does seem that soccer, unlike a great quarterback, can't do anything if he doesn't get blocking from his offensive line. So it does seem in soccer that a superstar player like a Messi or a Ricky Pouge or whomever you want to, the way Son changed LAFC, it does seem like it is a sport unique in that a superstar player can take over a game. And we certainly saw that with Zlatan more than once, where the Galaxy, the rest of the guys didn't show up, and Zlatan won the game by himself.
Yep, which is also why they weren't a very successful team whenever he was there, because they tend to rely on him too much.
Yeah, they got to the playoffs and it didn't work.
And it didn't work, right? You get there and just the whole deal. Watching Lionel Messi play in MLS Cup, watching the effect he had, 2 assists on that on the day, and certainly a lot of traffic, and the own goal that was caused there as well was going to be a goal for Miami anyway. So it's like one of the types of own goals I think with Vancouver you can sort of live with. You're like, okay, yeah, that was going to be a goal anyway, so we can live with that. But watching that, I think that was good. Again, I think MLS got what they wanted, and for the maximum exposure, the maximum eyes on the league and everything right before the World Cup, you got Lionel Messi winning an MLS Cup. That's what it's supposed to. You got Sir David Beckham with an MLS Cup. Yeah.
I spoke to a documentary filmmaker today. She's working on a documentary about Cristiano Ronaldo, and we had a long conversation about Ronaldo, and of course it of course turned to the comparisons and contrasts with Messi. And one thing that stuck out in that MLS game, if you remember, the go-ahead goal was set up when Messi took the ball away from a Vancouver player sort of deep in the end and set up, make that quick pass and set up the go-ahead goal. That may be one part of Messi's game that isn't as celebrated as it should be, is the way he plays defense and the way he's a playmaker. He has so many more assists than Ronaldo does. Ronaldo's a great goal scorer, but that's what he is. He's a goal scorer. He doesn't play defense, and he doesn't have the number of assists that Messi does. I'm not saying he doesn't have any assists. He's a good passer, but Messi is more of a playmaker, more of an all-around player. And I think he kind of showed that. I mean, his team won the championship. He didn't have a goal. He did have 2 assists, and he probably had the defensive play of the game when he stole that ball and set up the winning goal.
Yeah, it's again all around. It's a pretty good day, unless you're a Vancouver fan. You're probably pretty okay with the results of MLS Cup and everything. Although I know there were plenty of people who were rooting against Miami in that. So that's where we're at with the LA Galaxy. We know that there's deals out there. We know that things could start happening here in the next couple weeks. So you'd expect that. Again, free agency on Wednesday, Concacaf Champions Cup draw on Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. So you're going to want to get that. We'll know the LA Galaxy schedule then for CVI and whether or not they'll be participating, which means that then you can go and get your tickets for that. So we got a lot of stuff going on there as this season sort of kicks into the main off-season mode now. Everybody's off, all 30 teams, everything's happening now, so that's where we'll go forward for this. Let's see, I was going to say at the Train Club, if you're interested, we have Santa and Mrs. Claus on the 20th and 21st. This is all free. We do this for the greater Southern California community that come. I will say bring your best patients because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people there, but we'd love to see you down there. I will probably be over at the North Pole. I'm usually one of the helpers with the reindeer and everything else that goes on over there. So feel free to come on by and check it out. That's the 20th and 21st from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Those rides are free, but we always appreciate the donations. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited for that. Anything else? Yes.
Does Santa and his boo, do they ride the trains, or are they just kind of hang out?
They usually ride the trains to the North Pole, and then Santa and Mrs. Claus hang out there. We actually have a guest as well, because Santa and Mrs. Claus have to go feed the reindeer from 12 to 1, and then the Grinch comes in, and always a big hit. I'm always surprised. I'm not a huge Grinch fan, but I can dig the Grinch, but the Grinch is always a big hit at the Train Club as well. So from 12 to 1, the Grinch takes over the North Pole, kicks Santa out, and Santa will go take a hydration break. I'm sure FIFA would sell a commercial to that too. So.
You know what? You should get Cosmo to come out, and maybe Cosmo could go one-on-one with the Grinch. That would be great.
That's exactly. I need more furries at the Train Club, always. All right, that's what we got. Anything else, sir? You good?
Well, I'm sorry you guys didn't get to see my FIFA Peace Medal. Maybe I'll show it to you next week.
Yeah, show it to us next week. And by the way, the big question in the chat room was, do you still have those earrings available? Because, of course, I have your picture up with your earrings in. Everybody wants to know if you're still that hip, cool guy or not.
No, the earrings are gone. It seemed like the older I got, if I wasn't going to be a pirate, the earring era was over.
I mean, I think you just lean into the pirate thing. That's what I would have done. But hey, to each their own, and I understand that. All right, let's go ahead and get on out of here. We'll be back next Monday. I may do a reaction video on Instagram or something whenever we finally know what the draw is for tomorrow, so you can look for that. Maybe I'll put it out on YouTube Short as well if I can figure out all that stuff. But you have your CONCACAF draw tomorrow. That is your homework. Go watch the CONCACAF Champions Cup draw tomorrow, 4 p.m. And of course, that will be on YouTube. So just go to CONCACAF.com and you can find the YouTube link there. It's all over that page.
Is Wayne Gretzky participating in that?
There's too many names that I don't think he could. This is what happens whenever you get hit too many times, Kevin. I know people are going after Wayne Gretzky because apparently he can't say Curacao, but
or North Macadamia.
North Macadamia, yes, that's a great. I love their cookie. They're awesome. So yeah, somebody asked, somebody said, but you still have the shell necklace. You may not have the earrings, but you have the puka shell necklace. You still.
Right. Yeah, I got the puka shells. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. If you are looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on any of the social media, please head on over to latimes.com and then social media at kbaxter11, anywhere you can find it, latimes.com and at kbaxter11. If you're looking for me on any of the socials, it's at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. But of course, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find your podcast, you can find Corner of the Galaxy, and we appreciate your support. I saw a lot of your Spotify Wrapped. Thank you. We're honored. Even if we made your top 5, your top 10, even if you listen to us for a couple minutes, we're honored that you share some time with us here at Corner of the Galaxy. So, hey, have a great rest of the week. Check out some of the social media stuff. We'll try to post some reaction and get you some information on what happens with the Concacaf draw, and then we'll keep an eye on any of these transfer rumors as they go. All right, for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I am Josh Pato Guesman, and you've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.